Okay, here's how to actually make a lot more money with your PPC program, how to actually flip the program that you have on its head. And be able to set yourself up to make a bunch more money with your PPC as you are already making it without having to add another keyword or adjusting this or that with your ads. This is specifically how to take the model and add what are called a profit maximizer to your model so that you ultimately can end up either paying more for a customer, or so with that you could go a little bit further down the road and sell something else, which is mostly what this video is about, knowing that from that you can upsell to something else, which is going to pay the cost of what it took to get that initial customer for something lesser that you may sell, or something you can actually start selling to generate a cheaper lead that will then and can be upsold to your primary offer at your company. So with all that said, it's probably not real clear yet what this strategy is. Profit maximizer, I will go through completely start to finish how to actually do this strategy for your business. This works if you have an e-commerce company, non-e-commerce, doesn't matter. You sell a service, you're selling to business, end consumer, whatever. This strategy may not work for everybody, but quite a few guys out there who are watching this will be able to use this to flip your PPC model on its head to where you're operating on razor thin margins to get a lot higher margins that you have already. I'm going to give you 4 different examples where this has been actually done and the kind of returns that they were seeing. And with that, you should be able to have a decent idea how to do this for your business and about how much it can make. So at the end of the day, that's what it'll be about. I'll go ahead and get started. What the strategy involves is figuring out what really makes money in your business. Then figuring out what people buy before that and try to sell that instead first at a loss a lot of times, or it doesn't have to be at a loss, but many times at a loss. You'll sell something which your whole intention of selling that thing through PPC is just to line up a bigger sale. Not a lot of people think about their businesses this way, and they go head on with the big guys that are to make the big sale on PPC. But guess what? The sale where you could make $1,000, $3,000, $10,000, whatever dollars in your business, everybody else in your market wants quick money too. The bigger the purchase, respectively, the more, usually the tighter the margins there are when operating through PPC. Why? Because there's no waiting to get your return out of your customer. If you sell, let's say, bodybuilding, like health, supplements and stuff like that, in that business, you got to sell to the customer more than once to get your full return back on what it took to get the initial customer from PPC. And the people that don't realize that say PPC doesn't work. No, it works. You have to figure out what the lifetime value of a customer is and factor that in what you're willing to pay to get the customer acquired in the first place. Whereas on the flip side, if you sell something that only is bought one time and it's sold for $10,000, the price per click in that market for that particular thing and related searches are sky high because it doesn't take any advanced thinking. But just to put it simply here, I sell, I make $10,000. Therefore, I'm willing to pay a crap load for the click. That's it. So, whereas on the flip side, if you have to sell, and you actually have to sell something, have a happy customer, and then have that person need to and want to buy several more times and be happy every single time to get a return, that takes a level of skill and patience that a lot of people won't have. So the return will ultimately be higher than if you just had to make one sale. Your product may be crap, but it doesn't matter because they're only going to be buying at one time. There's a lot more competition there. What can we do to go perhaps a step backwards where we could sell something that's smaller, where the reward isn't so quickly, the payoff isn't so much up front, so that the big players that in business will say aren't going after those terms anymore, But if we know we go after that person can be flipped up into our big customer anyway. So we got like a back door in to sell something that has a much larger ticket size at our company without going head to head with everybody else that's just going for that exact product or that exact service right away. Okay, so I'll make this quite a bit clear with the examples that I'll give you on this video where this has been done. I've seen it been done over the last 15 years in business, doing PPC for clients, running businesses myself, how this actually operates in reality, and how to apply it ultimately for your business, or could it be applied to your business. So with that said, the first example is with a company that sells home IEQ systems. If you don't know what that is, that's basically if you could, on your heater system inside your house, you can actually put inside the HVAC ducting where the air travels through a filter system that will make sure that your whole house has clean air. You can put an air filter in one room, but that doesn't take care of the whole house. Ideally, you want your whole house to be cleared out, particularly if you have asthma or something, which about 10% of the population does actually. And the idea being that the fan from your HVAC system blows through to go the air to go to the rest of your house, assuming you're in a place that you need a heater. Most people obviously need one. That the air has to be pulled from the rest of the house to go through the heater, and then it goes up, the air goes through the vents and then to each room, and then the air recycles through the heating system a bunch of times because that's how the system works. There's negative pressure on one end, positive pressure on the other. Anyway, it's a smart idea that the first person who came up with this to put the filter inside of the HVAC ducting, because at some time or another, every square inch of that air inside that house is going to be sucked through that filter. And so it'll consistently be re-scrubbed over and over again. These systems, though, are not cheap. You're talking about $3,000-$4,000 a lot of times for one of these systems, because there's high markup on it, I will say that, but generally speaking, it's a fairly big piece of equipment, if you want to call it equipment, that has to be installed in the HVAC system. Somebody's got to physically come in and install it. That's not that easy to do. Anyway, systems cost about $3,000. Now, you could go after people looking for whole home IAQ systems on Google, and you're going to be faced with the problem that I mentioned a minute ago, which is everybody else that sells IAQ systems, assuming you're in a market where there's a lot of competition. And basically, if there's 4 ads on the top of Google, there's probably 10 people cycling in and out of there. Google's trying to constantly figure out who's serving the user's needs the best without clicking back to Google after they, got to that person's website. So people want to click on ads in the future. That with that, they price the clicks as high as they possibly get it, so not everybody can afford to be in those spots. So it constantly drives improvement in the ads and the landing pages and the people that advertise with Google. Okay, so respectively, you have to be in the top 20% of people that can turn a click into a sale just to make any decent money at all. But even that, the margins are not going to be phenomenal because everybody knows that they can sell a $3,000 system. So everybody knows the customers are there. Everybody knows they can sell for about the same price. And then it turns into a bidding war too, respectively, to try to get that customer. And they know if they get that person on the phone, they'll close 5 out of 10, and that's the math. So, and there's 10 people who ultimately want those same customers. Of course, the margins can't be that great, okay? So what can we do to actually make the margins greater? Well, that's where you take a step backwards, you sell something complementary or something that would normally be bought before you would come to the decision that you'd actually buy that piece of equipment. And then you do a profit maximizer with that particular service or product, which you're going to sell that one, but then you're also going to sell the primary item that you would really want to sell, which has mega competition against it. In this particular case, I've seen somebody do an air quality testing test for $10. So air quality testing is where they come into your house, they try to see, what you have as far as a problem, and that usually costs like $100 to get air quality testing inside your house. A little more if you do, multiple room testing and so on and so forth. We'll get into that. But basically, anyway, in that business, they know they did both anyway. Their primary business was selling these filters. Didn't make any sense to just go after the filters by themselves. The cost per click was too high. And a lot of people, by the way, don't do tracking on their ads. Believe it or not, only half the people really track their ads. So people are willing to almost sell at a loss on these huge mega purchases that basically there's no barrier to entry and anybody can almost do. Because half the people don't even know they're losing money when they're doing it. So, and then they also did try to run some ads for air quality testing, but also with that, because it's a low barrier to entry, that with that, it's also fairly competitive, even though the ticket size isn't that great, $100 to $200. Anybody can, kind of do that, whatever. Why not, instead of going at this, the big money in business is made by thinking outside the box. How can I get my edge? Why not sell the air quality testing for just $10? Undercut everybody. Who cares if they get pissed off at us? Whereas everybody else is selling this for $100, I'm going to put, when you type in air quality testing and Denver or whatever my market is, I'm going to have an ad pop up that says air quality testing, $99. And another one that says, $120. And then mine says $10. Of course, everyone's going to click on mine. My click-through rate's going to be triple what it was before. I'm going to get 3 times as many people to come to me just by doing that, which part of that will be subsidized through the reduction in cost per click you get, because when you get a much higher click-through rate, your cost per click is going to come down, but you're still selling it at $10 when it cost about $50 to deliver that service, which is why it's priced at $100 plus. You're still losing money. So to the average Joe, that's going to seem asinine, crazy, whatever. But it all comes down, a lot of times you can figure out how to make plenty of money in any business just by figuring out how to rearrange the offer in what you're doing, and understanding the math and how to look at more than just the first purchase and what a customer's worth, one customer over a different type of customer, so you can go after just the the customers that drive the margin that you're looking for. So in this particular case, so they charged $10 for the testing. They went after that market, air quality testing by itself, stopped doing the whole house IAQ systems. Between the cost, the employee cost to drive someone out, and with that and the ad cost, they ran it at a $48 loss. Okay. With that though, now, anytime that they would normally have an air quality test, they would try to sell somebody on a full system anyway. Okay. $3,000 system, about one out of 22 people would convert into a whole house IAQ system when they had a polished sales process in place to take that person, which they didn't give a crap about the air quality testing itself. It was just lining up a person that can be sold on an IAQ, whole house IAQ air filtration system. So 22 out of 22 of these air quality tests, they could sell a $3,000 system. So what did that work out to? 35% marketing cost, which is not that great. But still, it was better than going after head-to-head against everybody else for these high-margin systems. So to actually go after people, just make a loss on the air quality testing, which is something that normally you would get before you would buy a system anyway, and go at it from that angle and make more money. So, long story short, what is it that leads up to a purchase of what you really want to sell? Figure out what that is, offer that, or just start marketing that more. And because and when you know what the math is there, consider selling it at a loss, so you get not just what you're getting, but 3, 4, 5 times as many people come to you directly, because you're way undercutting everybody. And then use that to drive all of your bigger purchases, and where the real money makers is in your business. If you get my point here. So anyway, that's one situation that can apply if you sell products, offer potentially a service where you could offer them free consulting or free testing or whatever, which in a lot of different markets, I know it's already done. If you're in the legal space, they have the free consultation. If you do mold removal, in-home mold removal, it's the free consultation's free. If they have that, think outside the box. There's all kinds of different ways you could do this. You could offer a free something. You can offer, we will give you a $20 dinner with the free inspection for mold if you're doing mold removal. Once you figure out your math of how many people after inspection will hire you to remove it, which in that business technically that's supposed to be a conflict of interest, but a lot of people still do it anyway, including people that I've seen and worked with. So it's kind of a gray area, but still, just add some extra in there. It's like in a lot of different markets, having that little extra in there will drive all the demand for the initial product, which doesn't make sense. Sports Illustrated had the football phone. If you're old enough, you remember what they used to sell. Sports Illustrated almost went out of business until they figured out to offer the football phone that looked like a football basically, in with the subscription, and they took off like a rocket after that. That one individual thing. So what could you do to get a heck of a lot more of the initial interaction with that particular prospect, so that when you get in front of them, you're going to sell at X percent and drive your business that way instead of going after people looking for the actual, the real moneymaker product or service in your business. Now, also one more thing before I go on here, the reason why this works so well, if I was just going out there and saying, standing out front of my office and saying, hey, free air quality testing. Of course, if you give a $20 dinner, or if it's not free and just offering that, you're not going to close 1 out of 22 people into a whole house IAQ system, because these people are not the right prospects. So when you're running search ads and you're undercutting people where they're already searching for this air quality testing in the first place, you could do extra to get them to respond to you, but because they already were willing to pay for it already, which means they're a customer that's willing to get rid of a problem, when you go to upsell them the real thing you want to sell them, they're willing to buy it at a halfway decent rate that will probably be profitable for you, because if they're willing to spend up front, they're probably willing to spend on the back end too, at least to a reasonable enough degree that you can make money. Some people call this a tripwire product. You sell a product at basically a loss up front, because that'll parlay into some upsell product later on that you can sell them at such and such a percentage that will close, and they will buy the other bigger product from you at a much higher rate. Well, one, because you've gotten in front of them, but two, once they've given you some money, they're much more likely to give you money for something else. And if they're going to buy a whole house system and they realize after the test they need it, you're the default person they want to go to. So instead of fighting the people that took the test outside your company, and now they're going to look for whole house IAQ systems after they've been pitched by the other company that tested them, why not just own the whole process start to finish? So anyway, that's pretty much the whole thing with that. Now I got 3 other examples here to go through. If you're not doing a product like that, maybe you have a regular e-commerce store. We had a long time ago I gave this example in this video already about supplement company. So like if you're a weightlifter, you buy protein powders, you buy all these pre-workouts and stuff like that. If you're trying to diet, they have all these supplements. Think about like GNC, more so, but for people that are trying to do muscle building, more so, and like fitness supplements, if you will. In that particular business, for me, everybody's trying to go after, the thing is, with the advertising that on like Google, everybody's trying to figure out how to get so much ROAS, return on an account spend, i.e. how much you have to spend in terms of ad spend to generate X number of dollars of revenue. And they'll come up with a number that they, a lot of times will think is appropriate. I'm willing to spend $1 for every $8 of revenue on the Google ads, and I'll take all the sales I can at that particular ratio, right? But when you're going after everybody else that probably has the same margins because they've got getting the same the same products at wholesale as you're getting them, and so there's no edge there. Everybody has to pay the same thing for the raw materials or whatever. What else is going to be your edge? Of course, the margins is not going to be good on Google Ads because everybody's willing to, outbid each other until there's a tiny bit of profit left, and then that's it. In this particular case, we started to use an LTV tracker, figure out when somebody buys, we're tracking all the other purchases they make in the future, basically, or at all, or in total. And we found out the people that bought the protein, certain particular types of protein powder, the people that went on to buy that particular product or series of products went on to spend quite a bit more money. Yet, the margins on that particular protein powder up front is not that great because there's a lot of competition. So therefore, what people are willing to spend isn't nearly as high as what the actual true worth or what it should be at, based upon if people analyzed what the value of that customer is once they initially bought that starting product. So what they did was, when we were able to figure this out, I helped them. We sold the protein powder, and so of course sometimes you have a MS, or what do they call it? The minimum MS. Am I getting it right? Not MSRP. There's a minimum price that the manufacturer sets that you have to sell the product at. You can drop the price exactly at there, so there's zero profit left. So you're ultimately the cheapest one selling that product if it's a branded product. Or if it's not, there's no minimum. You just drop the prices so you're 10 to 20% less than anybody. And a good chunk of the market, or say 20, 30, 40%, are just going to want the cheapest product, the cheapest one they can find. If I could look for an Apple MacBook computer and I'm going to buy, assuming that multiple vendors sold that, why wouldn't I just go spend 5 minutes to check around which one's the cheapest one and then just buy from then? So if you set your price that's a little bit cheaper than anybody else, you'll just get all those people funneling into you. And ultimately, with that, if you know the value of a customer in terms of what they buy later on, that could be a highly valuable funnel for your business. And so that's what we did. We sold the product at cost, this particular series of products, which we knew the lifetime value on average was $174 when somebody bought the initial starting product. Selling it at a loss, well, not a loss, but at cost, meaning we didn't make any money on the product. The advertising cost was about $15 to sell that product at cost. So we lost $15 on the front end just to sell that product. The back end was $174 total, including the initial purchase of the sales that we would get. And that works out to a 9% marketing cost, which in that market's very, very good. It's better than what you normally would have got otherwise, which is you might get an 8-to-1 return. Now we're getting like an 11-to-1 return, okay? So in terms of all the work that you do in your business to do what you do, figuring out something like this that can triple the actual margin that you're going to get, or triple the profit on each ultimately thing that you're processing there at your company, is a game changer. You're getting a lot more for your efforts. So there's a different opportunity for you. Use a lifetime value tool, figure out what leads to a lot of future purchases. Understand that people aren't very sophisticated that you're competing against. There'll probably be nobody in your market who analyzes post-sale purchases and what they lead to, and go after the small pocket of products that lead to the most repeat purchases or other purchases for other items, which is the same thing, and figure out how much you could lose to get a purchase there and just start selling it cheaper than anybody else. So that's another scenario which might be close to what you have to help you out and get more from your PPC program as a whole. The next one, second to last one here, I've talked about this on this channel before. It's a 3D printing. This company sells 3D printers, real expensive ones, $20,000, $30,000 machines. This isn't this desktop one that hobbyists have for making little toys and keychains. There's industrial ones that cost hundreds of thousands, but there are also ones that cost 5-figure range, let's say. Stratasys is one. This company sold new and used product as well, so they're a little cheaper. Anyway, what we figured out is everybody in that market that sells that also sells the filament, which is the plastic that feeds into the machine that ultimately makes the products, and you have to keep buying that. So most of the sellers also offer that as a part of good service. Most of these people, they want a $20,000 sale, not a $20 sale for the filament, or 50 or 100, whatever brand that you're getting or type you're getting. So respectively, we looked at this, and we just tried to figure out if somebody buys the filament, how many people buy the filament and ultimately end up buying a product from you down the road. Of course, they have a product, they have a 3D printer if they're buying the filament, but when they buy the filament, each filament type is specific to the model that a machine that you have it for. So when you buy some filament from us, we know what type of machine you have. And now we can approach you as a friendly salesperson on the phone and say, hey, if you ever need another machine like this, a used one, we have one for you. So you can see how this totally can flip everything on its head here in terms of how much money we can make with PPC going at this from another angle that other people haven't considered. So in this particular case, it was the same thing. We could sell the filament at cost, even a little bit of a loss, a little bit under cost. Cost $17 in terms of the little bit of loss, plus the cost of the advertising to sell this filament. But from there, and this is a very, very crappy number here, but 125 people who bought the filament, they sold a machine to eventually down the road at some point. If this was my company and I got really good salespeople and I had really good follow-up in terms of email and make a really good newsletter that told you about how to be a better businessman with your 3D printing machines and how to get more out of them and all this stuff, I could easily get this down to 1 in 30, real easy. But even with them just trying to call and make an attempt to contact them and a little bit of remarketing, they got 1 out of 125 of the customers who bought the filament to buy a machine later on down the road. So we ultimately just ended up selling as much filament as we could. Didn't even try to sell the machines because, again, it was like the HVAC thing, the whole house HVAC system thing. Everybody tried to sell those machines, kind of all get them for the same price. They all want to make that big fat, earning amount of earnings selling the $20,000 machine and not have to do anything besides pick up the phone. We're going at what nobody else wants to do is deal with those little $20, $30, $50, $100 purchases of filament and use that as a mechanism to get the bigger purchases. Even with a $20,000 machine, by the way, if you only sold 1 out of 125 customers that's bought the filament, and you're talking about a $17 loss at each sale of the filament, you're still at 11% marketing cost when you factor in the cost of what the customers that you had to get, the filament customers you had to get to lead up to get 125 opportunities to sell, which with the $20,000 sale ends up with 11% marketing cost, which is a really good number still for that business and for most businesses. So anyway, that's a whole another avenue as well. So you may sell just a few things. Some of the things like missing parts, if you sell something that has parts or replacement filters, sell that stuff and then use that as a way to funnel a salesperson, a way to develop a relationship with people, get yourself a CRM system like Salesforce, follow people up, see if they need any help. It's not about selling. Put them in your system, follow them up 6 months later, say, hey, we got a really good machine in that's at a really great price. You interested in? We'll finance it. No, okay, well, maybe later we'll keep in touch, whatever. But you keep working those leads, and a lot of people aren't going to buy. But you don't need very many a lot of times when you're selling real expensive items. 1 out of 100 a lot of times can work if you're selling a $10,000, $20,000 product or something that ends up being that much money. Anyway, that's the third one. Now the last one here, respectively, is the bonus one. I don't have the numbers from this, but I also know somebody here, if you had a restoration company is a company when your house starts on fire, it gets flooded, there's mold in there, that they come in and rehab your house, basically. Bring it back to new. They'll get rid of all the water, then they'll help you they'll cut out the walls, replace them all, whatever. That's a hyper-competitive market. Why? Because a lot of times the jobs are like $3,000. They know if they're on the top of PPC, somebody calls, their place is all flooded, and they got water in their basement, they're going to want somebody now to empty it out, and there's a good like 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 chance they'll want you to do all the reconstruction later on, which is like the $3,000 sale. Why not do what this guy did, if you're in this business, or just as an idea, hire a home inspector and run ads for home inspection, which it's still running ads, PPC ads for people looking for a home inspector isn't that not competitive. It's still fairly competitive, but not nearly as competitive as this restoration stuff. So but anyway, what they could do, what the home inspectors couldn't do, was run the home inspection services at the rock bottom cost, to where they're basically making less than anybody else, as a way to get all those people to come to them as possible in their city, and then knowing once they actually inspected the house, they were going to find mold or water damage somewhere that had to be replaced. And of course, now that person can now refer them to do the work. And they actually set it up to where it wasn't a conflict of interest, where it was just a home inspection company, and then there was also a restoration company. The home inspection company fed the leads into the restoration company. The home inspection company could pay the person, where it literally runs at a loss at the end of the day, just to feed in these leads all day long. If you do 3 or 4 or 5 home inspections a day, because you're able to undercut everybody, 1 out of every 10 or 15 homes needs a total rehab, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 rehab job. Now you got 10, 20 jobs a month just coming in from that one home inspector that one home inspector could bring in. In a bigger city, you could have 3, 4, 5 home inspectors bringing in referrals all day long, and just and ultimately bring you to several $1 million a year in revenue just through the referral leads through this home inspector campaign that you set up. So where are your top referrals coming from? Think about that. Is it possible that you could run a separate business for to get referrals to your main core business, like this guy did with the home inspector? If it's not that hard, and your market's very competitive, and you still just can't figure out how to make decent money with PPC, no matter what you try, after you've watched all my videos, you've tried different stuff, consider just running an ancillary business for no other reason to feed your core business work or product sales or whatever. Doesn't matter. And also, this stuff can be done for doing B2B sales. But I think, ample information on how to do this for product or service, and should cover most of you guys. At least get the wheels turning in your brains about how this actually could be done to reinvent your PPC program and ultimately get a lot higher margins that could be possible than trying to do what you're doing, going up against all the big guys and just trying to eke out a profit there. Anyway, with that said, hope you enjoyed the video. I have a lot of different videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you want to learn a ton about making money with PPC, I highly recommend you check those out. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns the way that I build them to guarantee our clients results here at our firm. If you would like information along those lines, you can definitely find it there. If you have any questions about this, anything that you're doing, how it would apply to, what I've seen done and how it would apply to your own stuff, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a day or 2 time. And with that said, I hope to see you in my next video that comes out with another great PPC strategy on it, another day or 2 time.